That night should have been a peaceful journey home. But in a matter of seconds, the atmosphere turned tense, chaotic, and nearly uncontrollable. In the heart of Shanghai's Jing'an district, two superstars accustomed to the spotlight were faced with a situation they had never imagined. A crowd that was not merely enthusiastic, but beginning to lose control. Kai and Tan Songyun stepped out of the hotel with measured steps, accompanied by a team of bodyguards accustomed to dealing with throngs of fans. The air was humid that night, and the city lights cast a beautiful shimmer on the sidewalk. But the tranquility lasted only a moment before the clamor began to shatter. A group of fans, estimated to number around 30, were waiting outside. At first, the atmosphere was normal, shouting names, requests for photos, and flashing camera phones. But slowly, the crowd's energy turned more aggressive, more insistent, and far from controlled. The security guard on duty immediately instructed the fans to keep their distance. The request was repeated several times in an increasingly assertive tone. But instead of backing away, some stepped closer, seemingly oblivious to the established boundaries. The pressure began to mount as the line of fans at the back pushed forward. Space became increasingly limited, and the situation became dangerous. Kai was seen trying to maintain composure, while Tan Songyun appeared to be trying to avoid direct contact with the increasingly dense crowd. The bodyguards immediately formed a tighter protective circle. They moved quickly, adjusting their positions to ensure the safety of both artists. However, it was clear that conventional methods were no longer sufficient to control the escalating situation. Within seconds, a major decision had to be made. One of the bodyguards gave a signal, and the team immediately moved in precise coordination. Previously parked vehicles began to be repositioned, creating a makeshift barrier in the middle of the road. The move caught many by surprise. The road, normally open to traffic, was suddenly completely blocked. Not only were pedestrians stopped, but vehicles were also forced to stop on both sides. The fans, who had initially been crammed together, were now trapped in an increasingly confined space. Some appeared confused, while others continued to try to get closer, despite the clearly unfavorable situation. The bodyguards used their bodies and vehicles as a protective wall. This was not standard procedure and was certainly a rare measure. However, the circumstances that night forced them to act outside the norm for safety. Kai and Tan Songyun were eventually directed towards the lead vehicle. Their movements were swift, almost without pause, as if every second counted. Their faces remained calm, but the tension was palpable. Meanwhile, the noise began to rise. Some fans were shouting, some were trying to record, and others seemed to be beginning to realize that the situation was spiraling out of control. Time seemed to slow. Nearly 20 minutes had passed since the road was closed. In that time, the area around the hotel had become a focal point of unplanned chaos. Flashing vehicle lights, muffled horns, and tense conversations among security personnel created an unforgettable atmosphere. All eyes were focused on one point, the epicenter of this unusual event. Finally, the authorities were called. The presence of the police brought some measure of calm, though the situation was far from completely stable. They began to reorganize the crowd, issuing stricter instructions. One by one, the fans were directed away. Some complied obediently, while others still showed slight resistance. But slowly, the pressure began to ease. The vehicles that had previously been obstructing the area remained in place until the situation was completely cleared. The guards took no chances, ensuring there were no loopholes the crowd could exploit. Inside the vehicle, Kai and Tan Songyun finally breathed a sigh of relief. What should have been a simple evening had turned into a tense and educational experience. This incident served as a reminder that the line between enthusiasm and chaos can be very thin. What begins as a show of support can turn into a dangerous situation if left unchecked. And amidst it all, one thing became clear: safety always comes first, even if it means taking unprecedented, extreme measures. The night in Jing'an slowly returned to normal. The once paralyzed road finally reopened, leaving behind a trail of stories that would continue to be talked about, not only by those present, but also by anyone who heard the tale. But the story of the night wasn't truly over when the vehicle carrying them finally pulled away. Inside the car, the atmosphere remained heavy, as if the tension from just now hadn't completely left their minds. The city lights flashing past the windows bore silent witness to the events they had just experienced. Kai stared out blankly for a moment, trying to process what had happened. It wasn't unusual for a public figure to be surrounded by fans, but the intensity that night was clearly different. Something felt beyond what was usually manageable. Meanwhile, Tan Songyun took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. He maintained a professional demeanor, but it was clear the experience had left a lasting impression. Situations like this are not only physically exhausting, but also mentally draining. Outside the vehicle, several security guards were still communicating via their devices, ensuring the next route was completely safe. Coordination continued even after they left the scene, demonstrating the seriousness of the incident. Meanwhile, at the scene, police continued to disperse the remaining crowd. Some fans appeared remorseful, realizing their actions had contributed to the dangerous situation. But that regret came after the fact. Several eyewitnesses began sharing their experiences, recounting how the atmosphere escalated so quickly. From a casual crowd, it quickly became a nearly uncontrollable situation. Video footage taken by fans began circulating, showing the moments when the road was completely blocked off by security vehicles. Many expressed shock at the extreme measure, while others understood it was a necessary decision. This incident sparked a broader discussion about the boundaries of interactions between fans and public figures. In an era where access feels increasingly intimate, lines often become blurred, and incidents like this serve as a stark example of the risks involved. Ultimately, that night served as a powerful reminder that admiration and support still require awareness and responsibility. Without it, what should be a joyous moment can turn into a dangerous situation for all involved. The next day, the hotel atmosphere had returned to normal, as if nothing had happened. But for those directly involved, the incident still felt real, etched in their memories as one of the most stressful moments of their careers. For the security team, the incident became a matter of serious evaluation. Procedures previously considered adequate had to be adjusted to the new dynamics on the field. They knew that a situation like this could recur at any time if significant changes weren't made. And for the fans, that night left an important lesson that boundaries must always be respected. Because ultimately, genuine love and support shouldn't turn into pressure that could endanger the people they admire.